my next song is called Shiloh. And I guess I was interested in which was worse to a Yankee soldier, a Dear John letter from home or the sound of the rebel yell. On a dark and lonely night,
Allan James Grund, also known as the Woodman, is a musician, singer, songwriter, poet, lecturer, playwright, award-winning short story author from Michigan, and host of Music at the Mill.
I'm now the monthly host here at Brush Creek Mill of what they call Music at the Mill, which is basically an open mic format for musicians that want to come and play, and if the weather's bad, we might only have 3 or 4. You know, but that's not really a bad thing. We get to play longer, you know, so.
He specializes in original songs and musical programs for education, enrichment, and entertainment. His love for music began at a young age when music was first introduced to him.
Music has been an important part of my life since I was a boy. I can remember listening to big band music, you know, Broadway musicals that my parents played on the old record player when I was a kid. And then all of a sudden along came Buddy Holly and Elvis Presley and Little Richard and rock and roll. And I was only 8 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old when this happened, but music was always played in my house. And I always wanted to be an entertainer from the time I was, you know, 8, 9 years old. I'd take a broom into the living room and pantomime.
For over 20 years, Allan has performed his music in public, but there's something special about his music that makes him unique. His music isn't just entertainment, it can also educate. Many of Allan's songs feature information and stories from the American Civil War, giving his music a sense of reality.
At that time, I began to fall in love with the Civil War as a subject, and I began to read books, and at this point I've read over 150 books on the subject of the American Civil War, and during that time I accidentally started writing songs about the Civil War, my own songs, related to people, places, and events of the American Civil War.
His interest in the Civil War began on a drive to Florida in February of 2002. As he drove past historic battlefields, he felt as though he needed to learn more. It wasn't long before his love for music and interest in the Civil War intertwined into the songs that he writes
While we were
now.
traveling through the mountains of Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia, we would see the signs, you know, there's signs along the way for this battlefield is here and exit here for this battle or whatever. And of course we didn't have, but we kept talking about, you know, men actually walked over these mountains, some of them barefooted, in the wintertime, and fought. You know, we're going 75 mile an hour down the expressway over the same roads that these men walked on. And we both said, you know, isn't it sad that neither one of us knows anything about the Civil War? I mean, about a week later, a book arrived. She bought a book for me called The Civil War for Dummies, which I read. I mean, I practically ate that for breakfast one day, and I was so taken by what I read that I immediately started buying books, you know, other books related to the Civil War. Prior to that time, I had written one song called Two Soldiers. I had written it for a friend of mine who was in the Air Force, a longtime friend, and he had kidney problems, and he was dying of cancer, and I wrote this song for him called Two Soldiers. And after I started reading about the Civil War, the next song I wrote was called Gettysburg, and suddenly I realized that the song I had written for him was about men and women from all wars.
In addition to writing his own songs, he also hosts several musical programs covering a diverse collection of music.
Now I do one program called Two Soldiers, Reflections on the War Between the States, which is anywhere from 1 hour to 3 hours, depending on the setting. And that is, includes 23 original songs about the Civil War and dialogue about each one of the songs. I also do a program called Music as Poetry, in which I use my own original songs that are part of a book that I had written, where I combined actual poetry with music into one book. So I use that as an example of how music can be poetry and how poetry can be music. And then I also do another program, which I'll be doing on April 30th in Alpena, called The Roots of Folk and Rock and Blues. And I'm really excited about that because I think I love the blues the most. And there's just something about it, especially with a harmonica, because I play a harmonica. And so I enjoyed doing the blues, but this is a kind of a neat program because I did some research on the history of folk and rock and blues, and went back through my own past and all the music that I knew and put it together in a program with dialogue. And so I might say, here's an example of a folk song, and I'll do one verse and then stop. Here's an example of a blues tune, I'll do one verse and then stop. And then here's an example of a rock and roll, and I'll do one verse and stop, and I'll talk a little bit, and then I'll go on and do a whole song.
His talents don't stop at music, though. Grund is also a writer. He has been writing creative work since the age of 13. In 1978, he won the Broome Literacy Agency International Short Story Contest with his piece Epitaph for a Sucker. His love for the outdoors has also been well documented in 5 of Grund's books and stories: Alex of Bendelo, Upakwa the Bearer of Logs, The Song of the Woodman, Poems of the North, and The Border.
My wife and I moved up here. We live in a remote location, and we took the dog for walks all the time. And of course, everything was new. So every trail that we walked on was new. You know, we'd never been on it before. We didn't know where it was going. And one day we were walking this one trail and kind of looking up a hill, and there's this humongous, gigantic stump, burned out pine tree stump. It was about 10 feet tall. And it had a kind of oval hole burned right through it. So a small person could actually fit through this hole in this stump. And we both joked about, you know, I wonder what's on the other side of that, of that stump if you go through that hole. We kind of joked about it, and later I started thinking about my granddaughter, and what if she went through there and she entered a parallel world? You know, what would happen? And so I wrote this book. I call it a long short story.
For any up-and-coming aspiring musicians, Allan the Woodman Grund leaves these words of advice.
If you sing from your heart, only good will follow. If it comes from the heart, people will appreciate it. Johnny comes marching home again, hoorah. We'll give him a hearty welcome then, hoorah. The bands will play and the children shout, and all the people will turn out, and we'll all be here when Johnny comes marching home.
Looking down on the field stood a general without any fear. And he called to his right-hand man, Jimmy, he said, I do wish that stone wall was here. I do wish that stone wall was here. And where is my cavalry? Where is my Jeb? For more than a week he's been gone. I don't know those Yankee positions at all. I don't know what's weak or what's strong. I don't know what's weak or what's strong. General said, Jimmy, you know in your heart I'd do anything that you say. But I've got a bad feeling about this here place. I think we should just walk away. I think we should just walk away. Well, the first day was bad, but the second was worse. As the Yankees got pushed up the hill, Lee turned to Longstreet with a grin on his face and said, we'll roll 'em up just like Chancellorsville. We'll roll 'em up just like Chancellorsville. But in the absence of Jackson, they all did their best, but no one could pick up the slack. Not Longstreet, not Stewart, not Pickett, not Hood. Yeah, they all wish that Stonewall was back. They all wish that Stonewall was back. General said, Jimmy, you know in your heart this thing that you want can't be done. Man, I'll do anything that you order me to, but I think we should just cut and run. I think we should just cut and run. Well, the fish hook was set. Bobby Lee took the bait. On the 3rd of July, '63, as he called for his saber and George Pickett's charge up the hill to his own destiny. Up the hill to his own destiny. Gettysburg watches them all march away, while thousands now lie in defeat. Things would have been different if Stonewall had been here, said Lee to his General Longstreet. Said Lee to his General Longstreet. General said, Jimmy, you know in your heart I'd have done anything for your sake. But man, I had a bad feeling about this here place. This has all just been one big mistake. It's all just been one big mistake. Johnny come marching home. When Johnny comes marching home. When Johnny comes marching home. Thank you.